Greetings, everyone. I'm Delary McEwen, and today we're going to talk about the reproductive system. Things you'll learn, or that I hope you get out of this, are the reproductive system in general. What is it? We'll talk about the male and the female reproductive system, the organs, and we'll talk about pregnancy a little bit for a woman. Start off by talking about the reproductive system in general. It is responsible for the production of new life within a species. It includes sexual reproduction, which means there's a parent of each sex, male and female, that will produce a specialized reproductive cell called the gamete. The male is referred to as the spermatozoa, and the female gamete is referred to as the ovum. Fertilization also occurs there, and it's when sex cells combine and begin the process of new life formation. Now, the male and female reproductive systems are responsible for producing, bringing together, and nurturing the reproductive cells until a new birth occurs. Now we'll talk about the male reproductive system. It includes the testes, which are the main essential organs responsible for the production of spermatozoa, your male sex cells, remember. They are paired in oval-shaped glands. It also includes testosterone, which is the hormone for men. It is often referred to as that masculine hormone. So men, you'll hear people say, oh, he's masculine, or need some more testosterone. Get some testosterone. They want you to man up, become, more masculine. Then testosterone influences the development of the accessory organs of reproduction and secondary sexual characteristics. And those are things such as the body hair on men, and the deepening of the male voice at puberty. I remember my younger brother, he was transitioning from this little boy into this man or this teenager, and some of the things he did, which is not related to here. One thing, he would always sleep with my mom in the bed. He was her little boy. He was mama's boy. And we'd always say, man, stop doing that, but he was mama's boy. You could not pull him away from his mama. And then once he started to grow up and change into a teenager and to get a little girlfriend, he slept in his own room. He started getting a little hair on his chin, and then a little mustache. And then his voice began to deepen. And we thought, oh, Lord, you're changing, you're growing up. So those are some of the ways you can identify the puberty and the boys changing from boys to teen or men. Testosterone, it affects protein anabolism in the body, and that's seen in muscular. Now we'll talk about the scrotum. It's a sac of loose skin and fascia suspended from the lower anterior pelvic wall. Now let's talk about location, and I have location here because it's important to see where things are. The testes, they are located within the scrotum outside the abdominal pelvic cavity. And then the scrotum is essential in proper development of spermatozoa, and is dependent upon a temperature range about 1 to 3 degrees centigrade cooler than that of the pelvic cavity. The tunica albuginea. It's an inner, dense, fibrous capsule included within the 2 layers of tissue covering the outer surface of the testes. The tunica vaginalis, it's a layer or a pouch of fibrous tissue that wraps around the testes. The seminiferous tubules, they're small, lightly coiled structures that are at the site of germination, maturation, and transportation of the sperm cells within the testes. It's also where spermatozoa are produced. Now, spermatogenesis is the process which immune cells progress through before they become mature spermatozoa. You got a lot out of that, I know you did. 3 parts of a mature spermatozoon, and that's a new word for you. It's just a plural of spermatozoa. Those 3 parts are the head or the body, and they contain 23 chromosomes representing all of the father's genetic material. It includes the midpiece and a whip-like tail, and that tail aids in locomotion as the spermatozoon moves through the female reproductive tract. Epididymis is 1.5 inches long, and it's a tightly coiled and twisted structure which lies against the posterior surface of the testes and the first portion of the spermatic duct. The ductus vas deferens It's a second section of the spermatic duct that's approximately 18 inches long, and it delivers the spermatozoa towards the last section of the spermatic duct and through the urethra via peristaltic contractions in its muscular walls during the process of discharging system. Now you have an ejaculatory duct, and that's that last part of the spermatic duct. It's like 1 inch long, and it empties into the urethra. The urethra is that tube that serves to transport urine from the bladder and semen to the outside of the body. It's part of both the urinary and the reproductive system, so you probably are familiar with the urethra when we talked about the urinary system in previous quarters in anatomy. We'll continue with semen, or the seminal fluid. It's a thick whitish fluid of the male reproductive tract, and it consists of spermatozoa suspended in secretions of accessory glands. The seminal vesicles, they're small pouches located near the point where the vas deferens terminates, and this fluid produced, it helps to transport and nourish the spermatozoa. It's also an accessory gland. The prostate gland is an organ which encircles the urethra just inferior to the bladder, and it adds secretion to the seminal fluid believed to help activate spermatozoa. Bulbourethral glands, they're small glands that add an alkaline secretion to the seminal fluid that helps to buffer the acidity of the male urethra and the female reproductive tract. Now we'll talk about the penis. It is an organ designed to deliver spermatozoa into the female reproductive tract that consists of glands, not glands, but glands. That's the shaft that terminates and enlarges tip. The prepuce, or the foreskin, a retractable layer of skin that covers the gland. Circumcision, a procedure to surgically remove the foreskin of the penis, and that usually occurs after birth, when the mother or the female delivers her child, and it's a boy, and they'll usually perform circumcision probably within a week of the delivery. They typically like to do it when they're young, so that they don't have to remember it and deal with it. I think it's a little bit more painful and realistic when they're adults or young boys or so. They don't typically get it at that point, but babies, yes, they perform it on newborns. And then it heals. Then it contains 3 spongy erectile tissue, and they become engorged with blood during sexual excitation, causing the penis to enlarge and become rigid, and that's called an erection. Then this contains those three spongy tissues. 2 of them are the corpora cavernosa, and that one is the corpus spongiosum. So that makes up your 3. And here is a picture that you'll see. This is the penis, and these are the two columns. 1, 2, the corpora cavernosa, and then you're right here, corpus spongiosum. And that you'll see that's your urethra and your tunica albuginea. Here is a picture of the male reproductive system. I thought, let's show you something, because some people are visionary people like I am. I love to see, and I can retain more information if it's visual and you show me a picture. Your urethra, your penis, your epididymis, your scrotum, your testes, your sperm duct, your ureter, although we did not discuss it. I hope that helps you all. Now we'll talk about the female reproductive system. This contains the ovaries, and they are ductless reproductive glands in females that are considered a heterocrine gland, and that's because it's produced both exocrine, which is your ova, and endocrine secretions, and those are called hormones. Females have 2 ovaries. The oogenesis. This is the process of an egg or ova, and in its singular form, it's ovum. So here, when it's exocrine, ova, plural. And this formation which occurs in the ovaries. The Graafian follicle, it's a small fluid sac in the ovary that encloses an ovum and ruptures during ovulation to release an egg. Now, ovulation is a monthly hormonal process that includes the rupturing of mature follicles, which are an egg, through the walls of the ovary. Estrogen is one of two female hormones produced by the ovaries. Estrogen is referred to as the feminizing hormone. And remember that testosterone was the masculining one. So now we're talking about the feminine hormone, and it's responsible for the development of female sex characteristics such as the mature genitals, the growth of the pubic hair, and the initiation of the menstrual cycle. Yes, they happen at various ages between the young girls, probably. I've seen them as young as 9, but they range 10 on up. Some are early bloomers, that would be considered an early bloomer. And then you have some who are late bloomers. They may be 15 or 16, very late bloomers. And it's usually quite tragic or shocking or emotional for moms when their daughter has their first menstrual cycle or begin to grow boobs or breasts or pubic hair. I know I fell out to see my daughter growing before my eyes, like, oh Lord, oh my. Another hormone is progesterone. It's the second one, and it's vital in the regulation of ovulation and menstruation. It's also used to treat infertility and prevent overgrowth in the uterus lining in postmenopausal women who are receiving estrogen hormone replacement therapy. It's naturally occurring in our body, or it can actually be made in a lab. Now, it won't be progesterone, but it will definitely be a supplement for some people who are lacking it, and they may need it. Continuing, we'll talk about the fallopian tubes or uterine tubes or oviducts. They are structures which serve as passageways for an ovum to reach the uterus. It's the outer 1/3 of the tube of your fallopian tube. It serves as the point of fertilization. Infundibulum, it's a funnel-shaped end of a fallopian tube that contains fringe-like projections. They're called fimbriae. The zygote is a fertilized ovum. The uterus is muscular, and it's a female organ containing 3 layers that serves as the point of development of fetus during the period of gestation. And that's gestation is from the time of conception to birth. So now we're talking a little bit about pregnancy. We're hinting on this pregnancy that I mentioned at the beginning. Your uterus, it has those 3 layers, which are in red, and they are your endometrium, and that's your inner layer, which thickens during the menstrual cycle in preparation for possible implementation of an embryo, so that it's getting ready for a baby, if you can see one. The myometrium is the middle layer, and it's thick and it's smooth muscle tissue. Your perimetrium is your serous outer layer, and it's around the uterus, and it's the visceral peritoneum. Now, there are subdivisions of the uterus, and it's the fundus, the body, and the cervix. The fundus is the upper dome-shaped portion. The body is the main central portion, and the cervix, it is constricted. It's like neck. It's a neck-like inferior part that serves to open, and it opens in the vagina. Your vagina, it's the birth canal. This is where the baby is delivered from. If you have a natural birth, your baby comes through the vagina, and it comes head first. And it's a muscular passageway from the uterus to the outside body that serves as the passageway for entrance of the male penis during sexual intercourse, and it also permits the passageway of menstrual flow out of the body. So in addition to it being the point where the baby comes out or is delivered from, when you have a menstrual cycle, that's where the blood will flow. And it's also the point of entry for the penis if you're having sexual intercourse. The vulva, it's an external female genitals that contain 1, mons pubis. It's an area of adipose tissue and skin, and it's covered with pubic hair, and that overlies the pubic bone. The labia majora, those are 2 folds of skin running inferiorly and posteriorly from the mons pubis. The labia minora, those are 2 smaller folds of tissue, and they cover the entranceway into the vagina. The urethral orifice, the opening into the urethra, and it's just anterior to the vaginal orifice. The clitoris is a mass of highly sensitive erectile tissue, and it's located at the interior of the labia minora. The hymen, a thin mucous membrane which partially covers the entrance into the vagina, the vestibule, the entranceway into the vagina, and it's between the two labia minora. And here is a picture of the vulva along with the parts that we've just discussed, minus the anus. And you will see the clitoris, the urethral open, labial, hymen, vaginal entrance, and of course this hole is where the baby would come, vestibule. Now let's continue. You have the mammary glands. Those are your breasts. Everyone familiar with breasts? Those are your breasts. You have two of them. And they're also considered accessory organs for reproduction. And they lie anterior to the pectoral muscles and attached by connective tissue. Your areola, the anterior surface on each breast, and it's a circular pigmented area surrounding a protruding nipple. So that little black part. That's the location where milk is secreted from. So for women who are pregnant or expecting and their boobs begin to, or their boobs or breast, they begin to form milk. And for breastfeeding, and even if you don't breastfeed, you're able to get milk out of them initially before it dries up. Your menstrual cycle. It's a series of changes which occur monthly in the female reproductive organs, and it's under the stimulation of certain anterior pituitary hormones, which in turn have an effect on the levels of estrogen and progesterone produced by the ovaries. This is, again, monthly for the female, and they start early too, as mentioned with teens. Once they begin to change and develop breast and develop pubic hair, you can expect a menstrual cycle to come at some point in the future, near future, unless they are a late bloomer. And yeah, your cycle is something different. Of course, moms, of course, usually have a fit there too. It's emotional for us there. Your menstrual period, it's 1 to 5 days of the menstrual cycle, at which time the hormone level decreases, the epithelial lining of the uterus sheds, and bleeding occurs. So that period, that 5 days of that menstrual cycle, 5 days of it, that's when that bleeding comes, and that's when the moods come, the mood swings. Hormonal people, women, men mostly say we become hormonal during this 1 to 5 days. Some in 1 to 5 days, because it varies for everyone. I've seen it go the entire 7 days, a full week. So just be aware, your period is within the cycle, and it comes monthly. Your Graafian follicle, of course, which is Graafian follicle, and we kind of mentioned it before, but it's a mature follicle that erupts through the wall of the ovary on the 14th day of a menstrual cycle. That's called ovulation. It's called ovulation. This is, you'll begin to ovulate during this time, and that's when people who are wanting to have children, they can begin having them. Or some women time them, some couples time ovulation because they are really wanting to have a child, and they will break the cycle down to when the woman ovulates. That ovulation, that period of ovulation is rather short. It is rather short. You don't have much time in between there to have that egg fertilized in that period. Here's a picture of the female reproductive system. Your uterus, your fallopian tube, your endometrium, your myometrium, your cervical canal, your cervix, your vagina, your ovaries, follicles, ovary, ovum, egg, ovulation. And here we'll look at the male and the woman together. You'll see the bladder, the penis, the head, the foreskin that's removed during circumcision, the scrotum, the sac, the testicle, the vas deferens, prostate, urethra. And then on the woman, your fallopian tube, of course, your uterus. Egg's going to come down here, your ovaries, your two ovaries, your cervix, your vagina. Here's that opening with your clitoris, urethra. Now we are done, and I hope you were able to learn something about the male and the female reproductive system, and a little bit about pregnancy, maybe where the baby comes out. I want to let you know that every child is born with approximately 1 million immature eggs, but only 350 to 500 develop into mature eggs. And that's during our life cycle, a female's life period, so a reproductive period rather, because you're not 80 having a baby. So I just wanted to leave that bit of information with you. And lastly, listen at this. We control the growth of every other species except our own. How about that for an ending to your day? You all have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening and watching this.